samsaradava nalalita loka tranaya karuna gana ganatvam Praptasya kalyana gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Varitramadyan Manasorasena Romancha Kampa Sutaranga Vajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Shri Vigrahara Nityanana Shingadathan Mandiramarjanado Yuktasya bhaktam saniyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Chaturvida Shri Bhagavat Prasada Swadana Triptan Haribaksha Sangram Kritraiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Shri Radhika Madhavayoda Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupanam Nam Pratikshanasvadanalolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Nikunjayo no Ratikele Siddhai Yayali Vyakti Rapekshaniyai Tatrati Daksha Rativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. Sakshadaриtvena samasta shastre uktastatha bhavyate vasadvi. Kinto pravorya priya eva tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado Yasya prasada nagati kutopi. Jayam stuvam stasaya sastri sadyam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pastatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Gadadhar Shrivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Neelamadava Radha Neelamadava Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jai Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sita Ram, Jaya Sita Ram. Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Namaste Narasimhaya Praladhaladadaine Hiranyakashipurvakshaha Shilatankankhalaye Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha Yato Yato Yami Tato Narsimha Bahir Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha Narasimha Madhim Sharanam Prapatye Tava Karakamalavarena Nakham Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadhrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे। केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे। जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव, जय नरसिंहदेव। जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज, जय प्रहलाद महाराज। जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद, जय जय प्रभुपाद।
विष्णु भक्ति पदे देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देव्याय प्रियाय केशव भक्ति देवी सत्यवती नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देव्याय प्रियाय केशव विष्णु भक्ति पदे देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देव्याय प्रियाय केशव विष्णु भक्ति देवी सत्यवती नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देव्याय प्रियाय केशव विष्णु भक्ति पदे देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देव्याय प्रियाय केशव विष्णु भक्ति पदे देवी सत्यवती नमो नमः। वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी, नमो नमः नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी, नमो नमः राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो, ए দাসে কয়ে না মোরা হয় শ্রী রাধা গোবিন্দা প্রেমে সদা এ না বাসি শ্রী রাধা গোবিন্দা প্রেমে সদা এ না বাসি Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namaha Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade Yani kani cha papani Brahmatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade Yani kani cha papani brahmatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashanti pradakshina pade pade Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Nita Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nita Gaura वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवा सत्या विष्णु भक्ति प्रति देवे सत्वताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवा सत्या विष्णु भक्ति प्रति देवे सत्वताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवा सत्या विष्णु भक्ति प्रति देवे सत्वताय नमो नमः। तुलसी महारानी की जय।
Oh, Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow down before you again. My desire is in the service of Sri Shivaka. Bestowing your massage. My desire is that's within my mission. There are 10 senses in the meditation program that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. Blasphemy, devotees who are dedicated life for the propagation of the all. 2. To conceal the damage of the life of Brahma, and non-mission. 3. Disobey the orders of the masters. 4. Blasphemy, devotees who are the virtues. 5. Consider the Lord chanting Hare Krishna in imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the meaning of life. 7. To consider the activities and strength of chanting the meaning. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna among the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often conveyed as the spiritual activities karma and kanda. 9. To instruct the curious person about the glories of this journey. 10. To not have complete faith in contamination and to maintain material attachment to the understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive of chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must guard against this disease. Beyond the privileges of that success, Krishna Prema. Now let us talk about open witnesses on all the Vaishnava devotees of all. Yes, Gayatri's woman. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Cheto Darpana Marajanam Bhava Mahadavaki Nirvapanam Chiya Kaira Vachantrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Patipatam Purnamita Sadhanam Sarvatma Sahanam Hara This scientific movement is a prime foundation of humanity at large because it expresses a race and dimension movement. It is life of all transcendent knowledge. It increases ocean transcendent bliss and enables to fully taste the nectar of which you are always anxious. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone grants all benediction to human beings, and thus there are hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendent names you have invested all your transcendental energy. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness enables us to easily approach you by holy name. But I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction to it. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, you can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want to have causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Nanda, I'm your eternal servitor, yet somehow I have fallen into this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me among the islands of lotus feet. Oh my Lord, while my eyes be saturated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant holy name, while my voice choke up, while the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name. Oh Govinda, feeling your separation and constant moment to be like Milani. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I think all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and shall remain so even if he handles interrupted by his embraces, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Shakshrasatam Ki Jai. Shri Mangala Aarti prayers Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Dhananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Mahyam Dadati Swapadantarikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Vita Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shita Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadhuitam Savadutam Parishana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakham Shita Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Chashtakati Shadarine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namine Shri Varshavani Devi Karitaya Kripaptaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhuryo Jala Premade Shri Rupa Nuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Mutaye Vinasarine Rupanuga Virodhaka Siddhanta Gandharine Namo Gaurkishoraya Sacha Vairagya Murtaye Vikrambaratam Bode Padam Bhujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gauravya Bhava Bhumitvam Nirvishta Sajanagaya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vanchava Patarushisya Kripa Sindhumayevata Patitanam Bhavnekyo Vaishnavekyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Krishna Namaha Hey Panchatapadakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhaktashaktakam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Kirapate Gopesha Gopika Kamcha Radha Kamcha Namaste Jaitam Surator Pangor Mamamanta Kirtati Matsara Swapatam Gojo Radha Madanamo Divya Gandharanya Vasit Madha Shimad Ratnagara Samashamaskito Shimad Radha Shri Vrishabhanu Stute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranama Prayers Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarime Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're continuing in Canto 3, Chapter 8, verse number 2. And it says, Sahanrinam Shula Sukaya Dukam Mahadgatanam Viramaya Tasya Pravartaye Bhagavatam Puranam Yad Aha Sakshat Bhagavan Rishibhyaha. Sa, that, aham, I, nrinam, of the human being, shula, very little, sukaya, for happiness, dukam, distress, mahat, great, gatanam, entered into, viramaya, for mitigation, tasya, his, pravartaye, in the beginning, Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, Puranam, Vedic supplement, Yat, which, Aha, said, Shakshat, directly, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Rishibhyaha, unto the sages. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Let me now begin speaking on the Bhagavata Purana, which was directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead for the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The sage Maitreya proposed to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam because he was especially complied, and and traditionally comes down in the disciplic succession. For the solution of all the problems of human society. Only one who is fortunate can have the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. Under the spell of material energy, the living entities are entrapped in the bondage of many difficulties simply for the sake of a little bit of material happiness. They engage in fruitive activities, not knowing the implications under the false impression that the body is the self. The living entities foolishly relate to so many false attachments. They think that they can engage with materialistic paraphernalia forever. This gross misconception of life is so strong that a person suffers continually, life after life, under the external energy of the Lord. If one comes in contact with the book Bhagavatam, as well as the devotee Bhagavata, who knows what the Bhagavatam is, then such a fortunate man gets out of the material entanglement. Therefore, Sri Maitreya Muni, out of compassion for the suffering men in the world, proposes to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam first and last. So we read this yesterday also. It's such an important verse and purport. That's why I wanted to read it again. Now we go to text 3. Asinam urvyam Bhagavatam adyam Sankarsanam Deva Akuta Sattvam Vivitsavastatvam Ataparasya Kumara Mukhya Munayo Navapracham Asinam, seated, Urvyam, in the bottom of the universe, Bhagavan Tam, unto the Lord, Adyam, the original, Sankarsanam, Sankarsana, Devam, the personality of Godhead, Akunta Sattvam, undeterred, knowledge, Vivitsava, being inquisitive to know, Tattvam Ata, truth like this, Parasya, regarding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kumara, the boy saint, Mukhyaha, headed by, Munaya, great sages, Anvaprichan, inquired like this. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Some time ago, being inquisitive to know, Sanat Kumara, the chief of the boy saints, accompanied by other great sages, inquired exactly like you, meaning like Vidura, about the truth regarding Vasudeva. Vasudeva is another name of Krishna. It means the son of Vasudeva, the Supreme, from Lord Sankarsana, who is seated at the bottom of the universe. Okay, so that Lord Sankarsana is talking about Garbhodakshay Vishnu. Purport. This is in clarification a statement that the Lord spoke directly on the Srimad Bhagavatam. When and unto whom the Bhagavatam was spoken is explained herewith. Questions similar to those put forward by Vidura were asked by great sages like Sanat Kumara and Lord Sankarsan. The plenary expanse of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva answered them. So what's really important in this verse and purport is that Maitreya is not speaking something from his own experience. He's speaking based on the fact that this question was already asked in ancient times by Sanat Kumara, one of the four Kumaras. And it was answered already. So that means that devotees will never make up some explanation. They will always refer first to, just like yesterday I was asked, how can we control anger? I said, well, first point, everything is in the Bhagavad Gita. Second point, we went to a verse, second chapter, 62nd and 63rd verse, that answers the question. So every question, serious question about spiritual life has already been answered. All we do is simply repeat it, and we refer to who answered that question previously. It could be in Bhagavad Gita, it could be in Srimad Bhagavatam, it could be in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it could be in Nectar of Devotion. But everything has already been asked and explained. Everything has already been tested to see that it's true. So we don't have to do any seminal research. All we have to do is repeat what the acharyas or Krishna has already said and explained. So it says, some time ago, being inquisitive to know, Sanat Kumara, the chief of the boy saints, accompanied by other great sages, inquired exactly like you about the truths regarding Vasudeva, the Supreme, from Lord Sankarsana, who is seated at the bottom of the universe. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The next verse. Swam eva disnyam bahumanayantam Yat Vasudeva Bidam Amananti Pritak Dritak Shamam Shambuja Kosham Isad Anmilayantam Vibudayodaya. Swam, himself, Eva, thus, Disanyan, situated, Bahu, greatly, Manayantam, esteemed, Yat, that which, Vasudeva, Lord Vasudeva, Abhidam, by the name, Amananti, acknowledge, Pratyak, Drita Aksha, eyes settled for introspection, Abuja Kosham, lotus-like eye, Isat, slightly, Unmilayantam, open, Vibudha, of the greatly learned sages, Udayaya, for the sake of advancement. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. At that time, Lord Sankarsana was meditating upon the Supreme Lord, whom the learned esteem as Lord Vasudeva. But for the sake of the advancement of the great learned sages, he slightly opened his lotus-like eyes and began to speak. So even the expansions of Krishna meditate on Krishna. So what should we be doing then? We should be meditating on Krishna. So then we go to text 5. Swadunya udara jai sajata kalpair kalapair upasrisantas charanopadanvanam Padmam yad archant ahiraja kanya Saprema nana balibir vatartaha Swaduni uda, by the water of the Ganges, are dry, being moistened. Swajata, bunch of hair. Kalapai, situated on the head. Upasprisanta, by so touching. Charanam upadanam, the shelter of his feet. Padmam, the lotus shelter. Yat, that which. Archanti, worships. Ahiraja, the serpent king. Kanya, daughters. Suprema, with great devotion. Nana, various. Balibi, para paraphernalia. It's para, para no, it's not paraphernalia. It's paraphernalia. Vara arta, being desirous of husbands. Oh, that might have been misspelled.
On the website, it is paraphernalia.
Yeah, so this is a mistake here. I was wondering what that means. They misspelled it. I said it correctly the first time, and I looked at it carefully, and it wasn't spelled correctly. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The sages came from the highest planets down to the lower region through the water of the Ganges, and therefore the hair on their heads was wet.
They touch the lotus feet of the Lord, which are worshipped with various paraphernalia. There it is. Again, it's misspelled, is it? No, wait a minute. How's it spelled there?
It's P-A-R-A-P-H-E-R-N-A-L-I-A.
Okay, it is spelled right. I just mispronounced it. Paraphernalia, okay. They touch the lotus feet of the Lord, which are worshipped with various paraphernalia by the daughters of the serpent king when they desire good husbands. Okay. Now, it's very interesting that what it says here. The sages came from the highest planets down to the lower region through the water of the Ganges. Now, what does that mean? That means, see, when Vamanadev stretched his foot and taking the second step, that he was given 3 steps. In the second step, he surpassed the end of the universe and broke into the causal ocean. And then a few drops of water came in from the causal ocean, and that became the Mandakini River in the Devalokas. And then later on, devotee brought the Mandakini down into the earth planet, and it became the Ganges. So there is a way, see, to travel from the heavenly planets, or the highest planets, down to the lower region through the water of the Ganges. So this is a very interesting point. The Ganges is the only celestial river which flows throughout the universe. See, there it is. And great sages travel all over the universe via this sacred river. Now we know how they do it. They just take the river way. The statement that their hair was wet indicates that it was directly moistened by the water originating from the lotus feet of Vishnu, the Ganges. Oh, that's very auspicious. You put Ganges water on your head, you're blessed. Whoever touches the water of the Ganges to his head surely touches the lotus feet of the Lord directly and can become free from all effects of sinful acts. Now we should know why we should put water of the Ganges on our head. If after taking a bath in the Ganges, or being washed of all sins, a man guards himself against committing further sinful acts, then certainly he is delivered. But if he again takes up sinful activities, his bath in the Ganges is as good as that of the elephant, who nicely takes his bath in a river, but later spoils the whole thing by covering himself with dust on the land. So just going to India, take a bath in the Ganges, or dip in the Ganges, it's good. But if you come out and smoke a bidi, it's bad. So most people do bidi yoga. They go in, they get purified, they come up, and they contaminate themselves again. Okay, so we learned something really good today. The world down to the lowest by dipping in the Ganges, because originally in the heavenly planets, the Ganges is called the Mandakini, and it comes down on the earth. It's called the Ganges. All right. Yeah. What? The Ganges water flows directly from the lotus feet of Vishnu. That part. Huh? I didn't read that? Okay. The Ganges water flows directly from the lotus feet of Vishnu, and its course runs from the highest planet of the universe down to the lowest. The sages came down from Satyaloka by taking advantage of the flowing water, a process of transportation made possible by the power of mystic yoga. If a river flows thousands and thousands of miles, a perfect yogi can at once transport himself from one place to another simply by dipping in its water. The Ganges is the only celestial river which flows throughout the universe, and the great sages travel all over the universe via the sacred river. The statement that their hair was wet indicates that it was directly moistened by the water originating from the lotus feet of Vishnu, the Ganges. Whoever touches the water of the Ganges to his head surely touches the lotus feet of the Lord directly and can become free from all effects of sinful acts. If after taking a bath in the Ganges or being washed of all sins, a man guards himself against committing further sinful acts, then certainly he is delivered. But if he again takes up sinful activities, his bath in the Ganges is as good as that of the elephant, who nicely takes his bath in a river, but later spoils the whole thing by covering himself with dust on the land. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, so going back to the purport, verse number 2. It says, the sage Maitreya proposed to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam because it was especially compiled and traditionally comes down in the disciplic succession for the solution of all the problems of human society. If we can realize what this says, then we know what to do to help humanity. If it just, goes in one ear, comes out the other ear, we didn't really understand anything. But here it says that Maitreya Muni, he proposed to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam because it was especially compiled. In other words, it was especially written by Vyasadeva, and traditionally comes down in the disciplic succession and passed on from Acharya to Acharya for the solution of all the problems of human society. And this is what the government of the United States should be interested in. Here's a solution to all the problems of humanity, not just the United States, but everybody in the world. But no politician is interested in this. They're not trying to find out what this is all about. So that means that everyone in this world is being deprived of knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam, are suffering unnecessarily. And we see that all the time. There's so much unnecessary suffering. And it's very hurtful, because you see that people are unnecessarily suffering like this all over the world. So then it says, only one who is fortunate can have the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. So, how do you become fortunate? It's by the mercy of the devotee that one becomes fortunate, because just like Prabhupada, he took all this trouble to come to the United States and suffered 2 heart attacks on the way, and somehow or other survived because Krishna was protecting him. And he struggled for years to establish Krishna consciousness, train up the devotees, and translate so many books and get them all printed and then distributed around the world. And then he went back to India with his white elephant-like devotees from America and Europe, and he shocked the Indians. They couldn't believe it. These white people are more serious than we are about our shastras and following the way of life, the shastric way of life. So that was a brilliant move by Prabhupada. And because of that, now many young men and women are joining Krishna consciousness in India. Of course, the population in India is so big, even though there's thousands and thousands of devotees now, it's still a drop in the ocean of the population of India, because there's one point, by the way, the population of India has surpassed that of China. Did you know that? Yeah, it was in the news recently. It has surpassed the population of China. I read it, well, maybe, okay. I read that it's surpassed, but maybe in a few more years. So therefore, there are more people being born than are being initiated in ISKCON. So we have to, ramp up the process of initiation to keep up with the increasing population. Okay, so only one who is fortunate can have the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. Under the spell of material energy, the living entities are entrapped in the bondage of many difficulties simply for the sake of a little bit of material happiness. They engage in fruitive activities, not knowing the implications. Okay, now what does that mean? Not knowing the implications. They don't know how dangerous it is engaging in non-devotional activities. They are guaranteeing that they will take birth as an animal in the next life and have to just start again going up the ladder to come to the human form of life, because they're wasting this human form of life and unnecessarily suffering and unnecessarily getting into all kinds of difficult situations that just distracts them from Krishna consciousness, instead of coming regularly and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the solution of all the problems of human society. That's how important this one book is. But of course, very few people take it seriously. Even some of our devotees don't take it seriously. So under the spell of material energy, the living entities are entrapped in the bondage of many difficulties simply for the sake of a little bit of material happiness. They engage in fruitive activities, not knowing the implications. Well, they don't realize how dangerous it is. Engaging in fruitive activities means they're more interested in making money than in making spiritual advancement. So they are money devotees, devotees of money rather than devotees of Krishna. And it's very dangerous because they're getting implicated in the laws of material nature. Under the false impression that the body is the self, the living entities foolishly relate to so many false attachments. They think that they can engage with materialistic paraphernalia forever. This gross misconception of life is so strong that a person suffers continually, life after life, under the external energy of the Lord. So it doesn't just happen in one lifetime. It goes lifetime to lifetime. Right? If one comes in contact with the book Bhagavatam, as well as the devotee Bhagavata, who knows what the Bhagavatam is, then such a fortunate man gets out of the material entanglement. Therefore, Sri Maitreya Muni, out of compassion for the suffering men in the world, proposes to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam first and last. In other words, no other book, just this book. So when it keeps saying out of compassion for suffering men, and before that it says, then such a fortunate man gets out of material entanglement. So if you know English, not everybody knows English, even though they speak it or read it. When it says like this, it is referring to all people. It's not just referring to men. It's referring to men, women, children, everybody. Okay, so today I wanted to go over again what is neutrality and equality. If you understand this, you become an effective preacher. If you don't understand this, you try and preach, but you don't really convince anyone to become a devotee. See, the idea is convince someone to become a devotee means that you actually are engaged in the ultimate welfare work for all humanity by doing that, even if it's only one person. And just like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, I will sell all the marble and all the properties that we have accumulated in Gaudiya Math if I can make one pure devotee. Well, he did. Srila Prabhupada. That doesn't mean the other devotees in the Gaudiya Math were not pure, but Prabhupada is not only pure, but he risked his life and his happiness and his welfare and his health, everything, to spread this movement around the world. That's the difference. Not everybody's willing to take that step. And obviously not one of the 10,000 disciples that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had was able to do what Prabhupada did. He had 10,000 disciples, and he gave the same order that he gave to Prabhupada to many of them. And some of them tried. 3 of them tried, and they all failed. So now we see what Prabhupada did. He did exactly what his guru wanted him to do because he had complete faith in his guru. That is the secret of success. And he did not deviate from anything. Like one thing Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur instructed his devotees right before he left was to create a governing body. He did not appoint one person to be the acharya of the Gaudiya Math. He said he wanted a governing body to manage the movement materially and safeguard also spirituality. They didn't do that. What did Prabhupada do? He did it. He created the GBC and invested them with the responsibility of managing the movement. That doesn't mean that, so that's the material management and to safeguard the spiritual practices. Okay, and that requires a lot of hard work. You have to make so many decisions, how to guide the movement through all the different issues in life. Okay, so because Prabhupada only did things that his guru dictated to do, he was successful. And he didn't take the success for himself. He kept saying, this is all my Guru Maharaj's mercy. He sent all these nice devotees to help me because I couldn't do this by myself. And he said, and I see all these devotees as representatives of my Guru Maharaj. He was, very humble and always very, very, let's say, dedicated to his Guru. That's the secret of success. Right? Okay, so neutrality and equality. This is superior to prasanatma, being self-satisfied and happy. Where is that explained? In the first canto, 5th chapter, 9th verse, which says, Although great sage, you have very broadly described the 4 principles, beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is Narada Muni speaking to Vyasadeva and explaining to him why he was feeling despondent. After having written all those Vedas, right, up to the Vedanta Sutra, at the end of Vedanta Sutra, he wrote so many Vedic literatures, but he was feeling despondent. He was not feeling satisfied. So, in the purport it says, the prompt diagnosis of Sri Narada is at once declared. So, Narada didn't hesitate 1 second to answer this very important question that was bewildering Vyasadeva. The root cause of the despondency of Vyasadeva was his deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord in his various editions of the Puranas. Okay. He has certainly, as a matter of course, given descriptions of the glories of the Lord, Sri Krishna, but not as many as given to religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. In other words, he spoke way more about Varnashram Dharma than he did about Krishna. It's not he did not exclude Krishna completely, but he gave more importance to Varnashram Dharma. These 4 items of Varnashram Dharma are by far inferior to engagement in the devotional service of the Lord. Shivayasadeva, as the authorized scholar, knew very well this difference. And still, instead of giving more importance to the better type of engagement, namely devotional service to the Lord, he had more or less improperly used his valuable time, and thus he was despondent, meaning very frustrated. From this, it is clearly indicated that no one can be pleased substantially without being engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, this fact is clearly mentioned. After liberation, which is the last item in the line of performing religiosity, etc., one is engaged in pure devotional service. This is called the stage of self-realization, or the Brahma Bhuta stage. After attainment of this Brahma Bhuta stage, one is satisfied. But satisfaction, or prasanatma, is only the beginning of transcendental bliss. Whoa. It's only the beginning. One should progress by attaining neutrality and equality in the relative world. After passing this stage of equanimity, one is fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. What does equanimity mean? It means calmness, not getting all worked up, nervous or angry or fearful, and being full of anxiety. This calmness, equanimity means this very, very, let's say, calmness, not getting excited because you're successful, and not getting, let's say, distressed because you're not successful. You have this equanimity. You're equal in all situations, and always remaining calm. So, this is the instruction of the Personality of Godhead in the Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion is that in order to maintain the status quo of the Brahma Bhuta stage, in other words, to stay on that level, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, na sochati na kangsati, without any lamentation and without any material hankering, in other words, excessive material desires that just don't go out of the mind. The conclusion is that in order to maintain the status quo of the Brahma Bhuta stage, as also to increase the degree of transcendental realization, Narada recommended to Vyasadeva that he, Vyasadeva, should now eagerly and repeatedly describe the path of devotional service. This would cure him from his despondency. Well, now we see how devotional service is the real goal of Vedic knowledge, to bring people to the position of dedicating their whole life to serving and pleasing Krishna with love and devotion. Unless one reaches that level of dedication, they will never be satisfied in the material world. One can attain this stage of prasanatma, but one may not be able to maintain it unless they progress to neutrality and equality. Now let's go and understand what neutrality and equality actually means. So, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na sochati na kangsati samak sarve sabhute sumad bhaktim labhate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. That means all the living entities, not just human beings, not just this ethnic group or that race or this nationality. All living entities, starting from the aquatics, the plants, the reptiles, snakes and bugs and birds and mammals, bears and lions and things like that, and then human beings and demigods. One is he respects all these living entities. Why? Because he intellectually knows that Paramatma is in their heart and that they have an eternal soul like he does. They're all jivas. So this is the understanding of a devotee. Therefore, he does not try and harm any living entity. Okay, so in order to eat, he only eats those things that Krishna recommends. Grains, vegetables, and flowers, and water, and milk products, and nuts, and so forth. And then he offers them first, he cooks them and offers them first to Krishna. And then when Krishna offers it back as his prasadam, then he will eat. And he only eats those things that Krishna recommends. He doesn't eat onion and garlic because Krishna doesn't accept it. He doesn't eat any kind of meat or flesh because Krishna doesn't accept it. So this is the stage of a devotee. And then it says, one has to go still further from simply prasanatma to become engaged in pure devotional service. This means that one who is engaged in pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord is already in a state of liberation called Brahmabhuta, oneness with the Absolute. Without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render service unto him. In the Absolute conception, there is no difference between the served and the servitor, yet the distinction is there in a higher spiritual sense. In the material concept of life, when one works for the sense gratification, there is misery. But in the absolute world, when one is engaged in pure devotional service, there is no misery. The devotee in Krishna consciousness has nothing for which to lament or desire. Since God is full, a living entity who is engaged in God's service in Krishna consciousness becomes also full in himself. He is just like a river cleansed of all dirty water. Because a pure devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he is naturally always joyful. He does not lament for any material loss or aspire for gain, because he is full in the service of the Lord. He has no desire for material enjoyment, because he knows that every living entity is a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore eternally a servant. He does not see in the material world someone as higher and someone as lower. Higher and lower positions are ephemeral or temporary, and a devotee has nothing to do with ephemeral appearances or disappearances. For him, stone and gold are of equal value. So this is an explanation of equality. You see the equalness, right? This is Brahma Bhuta stage. And this stage is attained very easily by the pure devotee. In that stage of existence, the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality becomes hellish. The idea of attaining the heavenly kingdom becomes phantasmagoria, and the senses are like serpents whose poisoned teeth are broken. As there is no fear of a serpent with broken teeth, there is no fear from the senses when they are automatically controlled. Well, do you know anybody that really controls their senses? Very few people. Very, very few people. And those few people are people who have understood what we just read. Therefore, they're practicing it. The world is miserable for the materially infected person, but for a devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha. Well, So there's a difference between seeing the cup half empty and seeing the cup half full. You see, all the negative people they say, well, the cup is half empty. And all the positive people say, oh, the cup is half full. You see. So the devotee sees the material world as Vaikuntha. And the non-devotee sees it as hell. Right? And they're always complaining. This thing that happened, that thing's not right, and this thing is not. They always see the negative thing. They don't see the positive thing. When Prabhupada came to America, he saw the positive thing. Everybody here is not Krishna conscious. Therefore, I can preach every day. And so it's ecstasy for the devotee to be able to preach every day. This world is miserable for the materially infected person, but for a devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha, or the spiritual sky. See, this is why you should not associate with negative people, the people who are always complaining. It brings you down. They want to bring you down to their level because misery likes company. So you should definitely avoid the association of negative people. Negative people are people who always have problems. They always talk about the problems. They never say anything positive. They're always talking about negative things. Did you see what she was dressed? It was a horrible dress. You know, it's just any type of nonsense. That's what they talk about. So those are the people you should avoid completely. You know, when they say, oh, you want to come to the party and we can talk all negative things there? No, I'm not coming. When you talk about positive things, then maybe I will come. And they say, well, no, we're going to talk about positive things. You know, we're going to talk about voting against Trump. No, I'm not coming. Because that's a negative thing. It's not positive. The whole thing is negative. Everything they talk about is negative. Right? So the world is miserable for the materially infected person, but for a devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha, or the spiritual sky. The highest personality in this material universe is no more significant than an ant for a devotee. Such a stage can be achieved by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who preached pure devotional service in this age. Hari Bol. Yeah, Lord Chaitanya didn't talk so much about Varnashram Dharma. He was talking about pure devotional service. Okay, so then in the 18th chapter, 66th verse, in the purport, is Anukulyasya Sankalpa Pratikulyasya Varjanam Rakshishya Ititi Vishvaso Gotrite Varanam Tata Atma Nikshepa Karpanye Sadvida Saranagati. The 6 steps of surrender to the Lord. And the 6 divisions of surrender are the acceptance of those things favorable to devotional service, and that's anukulyasya sankalpa. The rejection of unfavorable things, pratikulyasya varjanam. The conviction that Krishna will give protection, rakshishyaiti vishvaso. The acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master. In other words, not only is guardian and master, but he's the maintainer. He's our maintainer. That's the main point. And because of that, he's our guardian and our master. So that is Atma Niksepa Karpanye. And then, it's Atma Niksepa, which means one is surrendered to the Lord because the Lord is the maintainer and the guardian of the devotee. And then Karpanye, humility. And so humility, and along with that, there's this gentleness that's very important. When a devotee is not harsh, very gentle, speaks very nicely, respectfully, they're humble, and full of self-surrender, right? Atmanik Sepa. The 6 divisions of surrender are the acceptance of these things favorable to devotional service, the rejection of unfavorable things, the conviction that Krishna will give protection, the acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master, and full self-surrender and humility. One who is fully surrendered is qualified with the 6 following characteristics. 1. The devotee has to accept everything that is favorable for the rendering of transcendental loving service to the Lord. 2. He must reject everything unfavorable to the Lord's service. This is also called renunciation. 3. The devotee must be firmly convinced that Krishna will give him protection. No one else can actually give one protection. And being firmly convinced of this is called faith. This kind of faith is different from the faith of an impersonalist who wants to merge into the Brahman effulgence in order to benefit by cessation of repeated birth and death. A devotee wants to remain always in the Lord's service. That's the difference between a devotee and the Mayavadi. They want to give up the service just to merge into the Brahman. A devotee never wants to give up devotional service. In this way, Krishna is merciful to his devotee and gives him all protection from the dangers found on the path of devotional service. Krishna is the best, what you would call, life insurance. You don't have to buy life insurance. The best life insurance is Krishna. You surrender completely to Krishna, he's going to protect you. So that's 3. Number 4, the devotee should accept Krishna as his supreme maintainer and master. He should not think that he is being protected by a demigod. He should depend. So you don't have to pray to Hanumanji, you don't have to pray to any of the demigods, Durga Mata, this one, that one. You just pray to Krishna. So one should not. By the way, Hanuman is the servant of Lord Rama. That's how we should worship him. We shouldn't worship him as a demigod, as the Hindus do. He should be worshipped as the servant of Lord Ramachandra. That's his real identity, the eternal servant of the Lord. They want to make him into some big demigod. And they recite the Hanuman Chalisa for protection. Now, I'm not going to criticize it. It's not bad, but it's not the best protection. Best protection is Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna. But Hanuman is a devotee of Krishna, so that's his real identity. That's how he should be worshipped. Just like Prabhupada is a devotee of Krishna, so we're worshiping him also. We're not saying he's a demigod. So situated in everyone's heart, and then 5, self-surrender means remembering that one's activities and desires are not independent. The devotee is completely dependent on Krishna, and he acts and thinks as Krishna desires. That's Atmaniksepa. And then last, the devotee is meek and humble, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. We're going to get to that. So that's Karpanye, meek and humble. Okay, so in the Bhagavad Gita it explains, Sarva Shichanam Hidi Sanivisto, Matak Smriti Jnanam Apahanam Cha, Vedaischa Sarver Aham Eva Vedya Vedanta Krit Vedavit Eva Chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So Bhagavad Gita 15:15. So the devotee is meek and humble, as stated in this verse. Sarva Shichanam Hridi Sanavistos Matak Smriti Jnanam Apahanam Cha Vedaisya Sarve Aham Eva Vedya Vedanta Krit Vedavit Eva Chaham. And the explanation is that situated in everyone's heart, Krishna deals differently according to the living entity's position. The living entity's position is to be under the protection of The living entity's position is either to be under the protection of the illusory energy or Maya, or under Krishna's personal protection. So you have these two choices. Either you want to be under Maya or under Krishna. The living entity's position is to be under the protection of the illusory energy or under Krishna's personal protection. When a living entity is fully surrendered, he's under the direct protection of Krishna. And Krishna gives him all intelligence by which he can advance in spiritual realization. The non-devotee, however, being under the protection of the illusory energy, Maya, increasingly forgets his relationship with Krishna. Sometimes it is asked how Krishna causes one to forget. Krishna causes his devotee to forget material activities. And through the agency of Maya, Krishna causes the non-devotee to forget devotional service to the Lord. This is called apohana, forgetfulness. So when you're a devotee, by Krishna's mercy, you forget material sense gratification. And when you're a non-devotee, you forget about devotional service. So both ways you're going to forget. But if you forget about devotional service, you go down big time. But if you forget about sense gratification, you go up if you compensate that with devotional service. If you just forget about sense gratification like the Mayavadis, but don't get involved in devotional service, it looks like you go up, but ultimately you go down because there's no devotional service. All right, we'll stop right there. I'm going to continue tomorrow. There's more about this. This is very interesting how neutrality and equality are superior to prasanatma, or self-satisfaction and some joyfulness. Yeah. Okay, take the microphone, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I have a question. I met somebody in the Sankirtan last week, and he was saying that he's atheist. He is an atheist.
A what?
An atheist.
Okay, it sounds like theist. It's the opposite of atheist. Go ahead.
An atheist, and like, even though I tried to explain him, his question was that I read Bhagavad Gita. I just read the translation, and even translation I'm not.
Was this man a Hindu?
Yes, his wife is from Chinmaya Mission, who reads Bhagavad Gita.
Chinmaya Mission. Chinmaya is a Mayavadi, big time Mayavadi.
And he said that I don't believe in any God, but his thing was that I don't want to read any interpretation because that is author's personal interpretation. And despite,
Wait a minute, is his wife an atheist?
No, wife believes in God.
But Chinmaya himself, by the way, Chinmaya, I met him. He's a nonsense, right? He was always dressed in a silk, orange cloth, and he was a musician, and he was very, he's the ideal person for the nonsense people. Like, he was very flashy, and he looked like a movie star, but he's a Mayavadi, complete Mayavadi. So the wife who studies or follows Chinmaya, she's actually an atheist also, because anyone who doesn't think God is a person is an atheist, you see. So the husband is a hardcore atheist, and she's a softcore atheist. But both of them are atheists. Go ahead.
So the question is that even though me and like we were 3 other, like Jaipal Prabhu, Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, and also like we tried to explain him the disciplic succession and everything, but his was like this book is also interpretation of the author.
Yeah. So therefore, why waste your time with such people? You just give them some prasadam, give them a free pamphlet, and invite them to come to our festivals. Don't invite them to the temple. Invite them to come to our festivals, right? And then refer them and tell them, look, if you like to really discuss this on a higher level, you come and talk to our guru. He's in the temple. And he can come and see you if you don't want to come to the temple. And you can have a high-level discussion. But don't waste your time, because these are hardcore atheists. So the wife is softcore, and he's a hardcore atheist. So both of them are atheists. So anyway, they've been poisoned by either material knowledge, like the husband, or by her so-called guru and his writings. Okay, so you're not strong enough to convince them, so don't even try. Just give them some prasadam, give them an invitation, invite them to come to our festivals, talk about our festivals, talk about the food truck, talk about things they can identify with. Don't talk to them about Krishna, because they can't identify with Krishna. They don't believe in Krishna. Right? So talk about something they can identify with. It's like the food truck, the cows, and things like that, the festivals. They can identify with those things. You're not strong enough spiritually. You're not even convinced enough spiritually to convince someone like that. So don't even try. Haribol. Any other questions?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. So Maharaj, whenever I try to talk about food truck for such people, they are very impressed.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah, they can identify with
Very
it.
impressed. And they say you're doing very good job.
Yeah.
Like
because they're into Madhava Seva is Madhava Seva, right? Actually, it's the opposite. Madhava Seva is Manava Seva, but they see it backwards. So you talk their language. Talk what they can understand.
And the situation turns into like positive.
Yes.
Because now we both are in same page.
Yeah.
We did tell them about what we have discovered yourself.
There's another thing. See, if you're not happy, you can't convince another person. And they can see if you're happy or not. Don't think that the karmis are stupid. They're not stupid. They're smart in certain ways. They can see if you're speaking to them honestly or not honestly. They can see if you're happy or not happy. And therefore, right away, they'll reject you because they know you're faking it. You're not really Krishna conscious. If you're really Krishna conscious, you don't get upset. You don't try and convince them of things. No, you haven't understood who they are. Therefore, the way you're talking to them is in the wrong way. Right? But if they see that you understand them and you're talking to them about something that they can appreciate, then they realize you're a very intelligent person, that you understood them. So if you don't know how to recognize what guna a person is in the first 30 seconds of meeting them, then you're not qualified to be a preacher. You're not qualified to be a preacher. So just talk about things that are general, like the food truck, festivals, go puja, things like that. Farming, organic farming, forget that. It's 4 things. So write those things down. Write those things down. Those are the things you should talk to them about. And you have to know something about it also. Don't start talking about farming if you don't know anything about it. So yesterday, like half the day, I was farming yesterday with Kartikeya, right? Getting all our boxes ready. They're almost ready. We just have a few more, about 6 more boxes. Right? So these are the things they can identify with. You talk about Krishna's Supreme Personality of God. It doesn't mean anything to them, and they'll criticize it. Cows. and festivals.
Because many people will land in all these different items.
Yeah.
Someone is attracted to
One of those is going to attract them. You know. Farming is a big thing. They like that. Growing your own food, right? And it's farming without machinery. It's all it's called scratch farming. You just scratch the earth. You don't disturb the earth, you know. And you work with the carbon cycle. We should have a seminar on this. So these 4 subjects, right? That way you get trained how to preach to non-devotees and get their interest. But you start, and I would never give people like that Bhagavad Gita. At the most, I would give them Science of Self-Realization, because Science of Self-Realization, say, that's a great book. I would not give people like that Bhagavad Gita. I would only give Bhagavad Gita to people who are in the mode of goodness. That's why I said, what's his name is not listening to what I'm saying. I said you should have a, what do you call that, a tablet, right? And you say, we're doing a survey, and then you have these 6 questions. We have the questions also that you ask them. And it's a survey. It doesn't cost anything, and you get a free book. There's the Chant and Be Happy book, and a cookie or a burrito if you take the test, right? And the test will tell us in what guna they are influenced by the most. And based on that, then you know how to preach to them. Then you know you should talk about farming, or you should talk about festivals, or you should talk about the food truck, or you should talk about this thing or that thing, right? The cows. Because if you're talking to a person in ignorance about Bhagavad Gita, they're not interested in the least bit about it. It's the farthest thing from their life. It has no relevance to their life at all, because their life they've completely wiped out any relationship with God. So then talking about God to them is a waste of time. But you can talk about auxiliary things. That's a good word, auxiliary things. Things that are a little bit related to God, like cow protection, like organic farming, like festivals, you know, and like these are the type of things that they can connect with. And then, but you might find out when the person takes that little survey of 6 questions, they all have to do is say yes or no. They don't have to make any explanation. You might discover someone who's in a mode of goodness. Now that person you can start talking to, you know, about Bhagavad Gita or Krishna or whatever. That person will be responsive. And if the person is rajasic, then you know you can talk a little bit about the science of self-realization. They might be interested in that, or Chant and Be Happy, or the cookbook. Because people who are rajasic, they like to do things. They start a project and they like to finish the project, right? People in the mode of ignorance, they don't like to start things, they don't like to end things. They're always, their mind is chanchal all the time, going here and there, here and there, here and there. Okay, so we'll stop right there. Hare Krishna, Glory to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we'll do a special seminar on how to preach to the atheists. See, we can preach to everyone, but you have to know how to do it. Yeah. Haribol.
Regarding the survey, Maharaj, I looked into the pad earlier how to put the question, but I started looking through the online, like how we can connect online.
That'll take you away from the subject. Online, nobody has something like this. You have to look Bhagavad Gita, where it talks about mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. Then you'll know how to do it. And the questions, Shrestha's questions were very good. I'll give it to you.
Online means, Maharaj, the pad should be connected to internet.
Oh, okay.
So you recommended to figure out the offline part, like not to connect to internet. So
No, do it offline. It's
where
too
we got
complicated.
stuck.
Yeah.
And,
No, just do it offline. You don't.
offline there is no direct way. We need to just figure out how to do offline. Online is very quick, Maharaj. You can just spin up the page. It's
Online or offline?
online is simple because there is a lot of tools online available. You can just make your
But
own
you
page.
said you got stuck on the online.
Offline.
Oh, offline.
Because we have to make something within the pad. Otherwise.
No, wait a minute. I don't understand why. Now you're making it too complicated. You just have 6 questions. That's all. You don't need anything else. They say yes or no. You don't even need the pad. The only reason you have the pad is because it's high tech. They'll come to you and they say, well, this looks like it's serious. That's the only reason you have the tablet. You don't need it even. You just need a piece of paper with the 6 questions. But it looks more serious when you have the tablet, right? So don't talk about online, offline. Just talk about 6 questions. That's it, right? So you don't need all this stuff, but you need the tablet because they'll take you more seriously. Oh, okay, Haribol. Oh, glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You see, it can take 6 months before you understand how to do something that's very simple, right? So, okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I think I mentioned this first time like 4 or 5 months ago. 4 months ago. We should do it.
Yes,
And it's an experiment. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it works, then we have a new way of stopping people. That's the hardest thing, is to stop the people on the street. They're not coming to us. They're going somewhere else. They're in a hurry. We have to do something to stop them. Right? Haribol.
Can you start?
Yeah. You have the questions? Or yeah.
I can take it maybe from Shrestha.
Yeah, you ask me.
Can I start?
Yep.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana
Bandhamoi Savadana Mate Jara Prasade Bai He Baba Tore Ajai Krishna Prap Hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitate Khoriya Akya Hare na koriya mane asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati Jai Prasade Pure Sarvasha चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्यगांग में प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जते Vede Gai Jahara Charita Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Ajama Janara Bandhu Loke na loke rajivana Ha ha Prabhu khara doya deha more pada chaya Ebe guys Gushuk Tribhuvana Srila Prabhupada Pita Pavana Ya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pashata Vishitarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivacharit Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitya Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar. Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapura Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai. Jamuna Maya ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachari Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pasatya Desatarani Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavani ki jai. Gaura Premanandi Haribol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram.